Welcome to Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. I'm excited about being with you today. And today we are talking about peaceful transitions of power. Now, when I mean peaceful transitions of power, I know most people are immediately going to the presidential election and questioning whether we should have and are we going to have a peaceful transition of power. But I'm not going to talk about that today because I know we're going to have a peaceful transition of power because that's what we have had for the majority of our lives and the majority of the history of our nation. But today, I want to talk about the peaceful transition of power that you need to have in your workplace. Now, what I mean in your workplace, that all across America, every single day, there is a leader of a team who announces that they are retiring, that they're moving to a new company, they're changing roles, that they're going somewhere else. Even more so, we have a lot of executives who are making the decision to walk away from senior leadership roles. As a matter of fact, I remember reading a study that says 67% of C-suite leaders were considering leaving their roles because of mental health and well-being issues, the level of stress that's related to that role. Not only that, in the first half of 2024, there were over 700 CEOs who walked away from their jobs to either go do something else or to just walk away altogether. So there's always going to be a transition of leadership and therefore a transition of power in your organization. So when you have that level of transition of power, you have to be prepared to lead your team through that. Because if you don't lead your team through a transition of power and people don't know what's coming next, who's coming next, what's expected of them, how they should respond, how they react, people will make their own decisions in the absence of a plan and information. If you don't believe me, then just look at college football. That anytime a head coach retires, resigns, gets fired, or even moves on to a better job, what do the players on that team do? Well, they become every man for themselves. They hit the transfer portal and they go find a new school to go to. And the laws and the rules of the NCAA allows you to be able to go in the transfer portal at any point in time if your head coach leaves the position. So in your company, it's not much different. Imagine you work on a team and your boss leaves and you're like, I wonder who the new person is going to be. I wonder if they're going to like me. I wonder if I'm going to be able to do my job. Let me start looking for another job right now because I have no idea what's going to be next. So there's always going to be transitions of leadership in organizations. And the smart leaders, the leaders who are well prepared, the organizations who have a foolproof game plan, have a transition plan. But I know that there's not many organizations that are foolproof. There are not many organizations that have a real plan or a transition plan or a succession plan. They generally don't have anything. And so for you as a leader, whether this is happening to you or happening around you, happening above you, you need to have a plan for transitions of leadership to make sure that not only is it a peaceful transition of power, but this becomes a growth opportunity for you, a growth opportunity for your team, a growth opportunity for the organization. So today we're going to unpack the peaceful transition of power and what you should do to lead your team through transitions of leadership. And this can be a blueprint for everybody. Like, I will be honest with you, I'm taking a part of this blueprint from how the United States of America has done it every single presidential election cycle except for one. And we all know what happened on January 6, 2021. If you doubt it, if you lie about it, if you want to be fooled about it, then go right ahead and be fooled about it. But all of us with common sense know what happened then. That was not peaceful. There were people who were injured, harmed, and even died because of that. And so we don't want that in our nation. And you don't want that in your organization. And I'm not even saying that you will have anything like that. But I do want to give you the context of the importance of a peaceful transition of power. Without it, you'll have a leadership vacuum. You'll have infighting. You'll have, people hiding, people hoarding, people doing all kinds of stuff because they just don't know what's next and how it might impact them. And most of us have the instinct of self-preservation, that we're going to focus on ourselves first before we worry about the organization. So let me give you like 5 clear things that you as a leader should do, should know to do, should always practice and operationalize to make sure that you have a healthy leadership transition that puts your organization in a better position after it's over than it is right now. And this is really for executive transitions, but it is applicable to every department, every division, every team in your organization, no matter how big or how small it is. It just depends on which role do you play. Are you the chief of HR? Are you the CEO? Are you the board chairman? Are you the marketing department director? Or maybe you're just in field operations and you just run a local store and there's big changes happening at HQ and you're hearing about them in the street. So how do you make sure that you communicate, operationalize, and execute a peaceful transition of power? So let's jump into it now. The first thing you need to understand that if you want to have a successful leadership transition, you must do the following: communicate early and communicate often. Here's what I want you to understand. You must communicate what the change is going to be, when the change is going to happen, what the change is going to mean for you, what the change is going to mean for your team. You have to communicate early and often, specifically when you know that the change is fully in effect. Don't speculate about what the change is going to be. Don't speculate about whether this might happen or might not happen. Communicate what you know and only what you know. Communicate the facts around the change. Don't get into rumor and innuendo, because that is the biggest problem when you have a leadership transition. Like literally people will have lots of unknowns. And when they don't know the unknowns, they're going to fill in the blanks with their own knowns. They're going to fill in with their own perspective. So again, think about an organization who has a CEO that decides to resign in scandal. So the CEO is now gone. Well, you as a teammate don't know the succession plan. You don't know what the board is going to do. You don't know if the bad boss that you don't like is going to become the next CEO, because you know they've been gunning for the chair. And so you're really wondering, are they going to get the job? If they get the job, I can't stay here and work for her. I got to get out of here. I can't stay here and work for him. So you're going to have all of these types of unknowns that people are going to fill in their own blanks. They're going to literally be skeptical about everything. They're going to be fearful about everything. So it's your job as a leader is to communicate early and often. So the moment you find out that the change has happened, the transition has happened, the first thing you need to do is to acknowledge that, hey guys, change has happened. There is going to be a transition plan. I don't know anything at the moment, but as soon as I know, you will be the first people that I communicate with, because I want you to be in the loop as much as I'm in the loop. Like I'll never forget when I was in an organization in a leadership role, we had a transition. And what do I mean a transition? It wasn't like a CEO transition, but literally we went through some tough financial times and we had to lay people off. Okay. So I remember being in a senior level meeting because I reported to the CEO. And literally in that meeting, we were having the conversation that the financial numbers are not looking good. And if they don't turn around in the next 90 days, we're going to need to start the process for layoffs. So did I hoard that information and wait 90 days before I told my team? Absolutely not. I told them immediately, as soon as I left that meeting, I said, listen, I don't want to cause any hysteria, but y'all can see the numbers the same way that I see the numbers. If they don't turn around in the next 3 months, there may be some layoffs in this organization. And I don't want you all caught with your pants down or caught unprepared. So here's what I want everybody to do is if you have any professional development needs that you want to get, a certification, a conference you want to go to, and you can get it in the next 90 days, I want you to focus on preparing yourself for that. I want you to dust off your resume. I want you to make sure your LinkedIn profile is updated. And if you would like a recommendation from me for any reason, then give me the notice now, give me the recommendation now, and I'll get that done. I wanted you to be prepared for the transition that was coming. So I'm telling you, as a leader, you got to do that level of communication early and often. And literally every time we had a staff meeting after that, I came back and gave them an update. And sometimes the update was, I don't have any new information today. Everything is the same as it was last week. But literally 2 months in, the information was changing. Our numbers have not turned around, and we need to start preparing for who's going to get laid off and who's not. That's scary, y'all. It's real scary. But my team trusted me. Again, I'm telling you, first and foremost, if your team doesn't trust you and you try to do this, you're going to fail miserably because you haven't built an environment where they trust you. And the reason why they don't trust you is because you don't care about them. You haven't showed them that you care about them and that you're trying to help them to be successful. But because I've done the prerequisite of leadership, the things that I teach in my course, the Leadership Learning Library, and if you don't have my Leadership Learning Library, then you're not ready for prime time. Maybe this message is too big for you because you haven't done the basics of what a leader should do, which is to always show your people you care, always help them to be successful, and over time, they will trust you. So my team trusted me that I wasn't trying to hang them out to dry. So when I came to them 30 days to prepare for layoffs, they didn't panic. They didn't go snitch to the organization. They didn't go run around acting crazy and starting rumors about it. They knew that I had their back and they had mine. So we kept it confidential on our team that the layoffs will probably be coming. But I had prepared them for 60 days previously. So they were all ready for it. There was no concern about what was coming because they didn't want to lose their jobs, but they know that they had a boss who is willing to go through hell to help them to get a new opportunity if they happen to be one of the people that was laid off, period. So the first thing is you got to communicate early and often when you're going to have a transition of leadership. That's number one. Here's number two, one that we particularly forget about most times, and America does it pretty well with the inauguration. And that is you have to celebrate the outgoing leader and welcome the new leader at the same time. If you have a leadership transition, you need to celebrate the outgoing leader and the new leader at the same time. And what I mean, celebrate them. Thank the outgoing leader for all that they've done to get you to this point, the success that they brought, have some of their accomplishments listed out, having some of the good things that they've done, have all of those things listed out and talk about those good things. And then welcome the new leader like you're so excited about having them to be there, which you should be excited about having them to be there. A healthy transition doesn't require you to throw anybody under the bus. It doesn't require you to badmouth your predecessor. It doesn't require you to talk trash about them as a person. Now, they may have made some decisions that put the organization in a bad position. Those are factual data points that you can talk about. But you don't need to malign or mistreat or marginalize the previous leader. Just do a good job of celebrating them. They were in the big chair for a reason. They were in the big chair for a time. And if they were in the big chair for any length of time, I'm almost certain there is something good that they did. Even if they didn't directly do it themselves, but because of the team or market forces, something happened good, celebrate them. Under this CEO, we had the largest market expansion in the history of our company. We went from 8 states to 15 states. Now, maybe The VP of market expansion is the one that organized and orchestrated all of that. But if the CEO was there, then the CEO should get some credit for it because they allowed it to happen or supported it happening. So celebrate the outgoing leader and welcome in the new leader. That's smart business, smart practice. That's good practice. That's the way you should do things. No need to throw people under the bus because that's only going to make your team get down in the dumps, because they're going to start comparing apples to apples and apples to oranges and hearing how you talked about this leader versus how you talked about the next leader. You're creating more problems by throwing people under the bus than you are finding the silver lining of who that prior leader was. Like, for example, I know the 4 years of Donald Trump was hard and bad for a lot of people, but there were other people who would tell you that it was good for them. They would tell you that the good things are about it. So can you find one thing that might have been good? One thing? There might be one thing. Maybe you saved a little less on your taxes. Maybe you were able to get a new job. And yes, the president didn't have nothing to do with you getting a new job, but I got a promotion during this time. I got a new role during this time. Find something to celebrate and then welcome the new leader. That's number 2. Now here's number 3. I want you to focus on stability, and I want you to focus on consistency in the organization. Just because there's a change at the top doesn't mean your business model has changed. Doesn't mean the core functions of your organization have changed. And so what you need to do is to refocus your team on the core functions of the organization. Focus on being the stable leader. If you're not involved in the transition, then you got to show up the same every day. Like, I know some organizations, when they have a leadership transition, when the cat's away, the mice will play. Like, literally, when my boss leaves, I ain't coming in here. Y'all ain't going to see me all week. I'm going to have my mini vacation at home to celebrate that he's gone. See, you're adding fuel to the fire. You're not showing an example of stability and consistency for your team. And that's what's required, that you got to show up every day, whether there's somebody else in the big chair or not. I remember in college sports, we went through a coaching transition that our head coach was fired deservedly. And while we were in the process of hiring a new coach, a lot of us juniors who were becoming seniors kept showing up every day, because we needed to be stability and consistency for those younger players. I mean, imagine being a freshman and your head coach that recruited you gets fired. You thinking, hey, I need to jump ship. What am I grabbing onto? The person that I trusted is no longer here. Well, you can trust in the stability and the consistency of the senior leaders on the team, the people who are 4 years in the game and this is their last season, so they ain't about to transfer. So you need to focus on that level of consistency and stability as a part of your leadership plan and as a part of your process. So that's number 3. Now here's number 4. This is really important one, very important one. And we do a lot of this in the succession planning and the transition of power in the United States. And that is, we empower the team members to make decisions. See, when you lose a leader, you can't have everybody sitting around on their hands waiting for the new leader to show up before anything gets done. Because time is money. Time is loss of opportunity. Time will put you behind the 8 ball, especially as technology and generative AI and quantum computing and all of these things are coming faster and faster and faster. You can't sit around all the time and wait for somebody else to come to work and make a decision, the new leader to come to work and make a decision. So you need to empower your team to do their jobs. You've educated them, you've equipped them, and you prepared them. So in the midst of a leadership transition, people still need to be able to do their jobs, period. And you need to empower them to do their jobs. Let them know, I want you to execute. So when this new leader comes in, we don't have a backlog of projects. We don't have a backlog of work. We're not having stuff stack up on the desk because we all sitting around chilling and twiddling our thumbs waiting for the new leader to show up. No, if you had a project that you started on 6 months ago and it was a big organizational change project and you have a transition in leadership, keep working on the project until you're told to do differently. But don't guess, hey, because Mary wanted that, I'm not sure if the new leader is going to want that. So maybe we should just stop. No, the last directive that you have is the last directive you should execute. I mean, just think about our military. They all get orders to execute, and they have directives that are given to them by every commander in chief and every senior leader in the organization. So when we have a change in president, do you think they stop? Okay, we're not going to sail the 7 seas anymore. Or we're going to turn the radars off and just wait for the new commander in chief to tell us if we should monitor this country or monitor that country. Absolutely not. They keep doing the job no matter what. So you need to empower your team to do the job in the midst of the transition. So yeah, it might be your boss leaving. Yes, it might be, a peer of yours leaving. Your team needs to keep working and you need to empower them. Give them the ability to execute. You got to elevate the execution of the people around you. That's your responsibility as a leader. That's number 4. Now, number 5 is the last point, and it could be seen as the most important point. And that is, you need to clarify the vision and the goals of the organization. The vision and the goals of the organization. I repeated this to y'all multiple times before. Your vision should not change. Your mission should not change. Your values should not change. And theoretically, most of your big goals as a company won't change no matter how many leaders you change in the organization. Period. If you are at UPS, I don't care who your your CEO becomes, your job is still to ship them packages to customer locations and get them there on time. That doesn't change no matter who the CEO is. The CEO is not going to come in and say, okay, our job is no longer to ship packages. Our job is to make boxes. UPS's job is not to make boxes, and they're not going to change their mission, their vision, their values, and their goals of getting packages to destinations on time. They're not about to do that. So in your business, your mission, your vision, your values, your goals will be consistent and should be consistent through any leadership transition. So what does that mean you do? You need to remind people, clarify for people, and refocus people on what our vision is, what our mission is, what our values are, and what are our company goals to be the number one market leader in this, to be the number one professional services organization in the world, to be the number one operational, deliverer in this state. Whatever your goals are as a company, they don't change. You still want to be number one. So to be number one, there has to be some fundamental assumptions around goals, and you need to clarify them. Number 2, you need to make sure that people know the vision. What are we all about? What's the purpose of our company? Why do we even exist? That doesn't change regardless of who the leadership transition is about. And that goes the same for the United States of America, that our Constitution, our bylaws, not bylaws, but our Constitution is our bylaws. And our preamble, all of those things still should be the same, regardless of who we transition as a leader. Okay, so let me recap, make sure I cover all of this. And I want you to understand that when it comes to a leadership transition, you need to do the 5 following things. Number 1, you need to communicate early and often to your team. Number 2, you need to celebrate the outgoing leader and welcome the new leader. Number 3, you need to focus on being a stable and consistent leader for the work that you have to do every day. Be stable, be consistent for your team. Number 4, you need to empower your team to help them to execute on their work. Give them the tools, the information, and the resources to get stuff done while the transition is happening. And number 5, clarify and remind people of the vision, goals of your organization. If you do all of this in the midst of a transition of leadership, through a midst of transition of power, transfer of power, this is going to be a great growth opportunity for your organization. A great growth opportunity. And growth doesn't mean easy. Let me be clear. This is hard stuff. Change is hard. Change can be dangerous, deadly, and painful to a lot of people. But those who are prepared for the change put themselves in the greatest position to not only survive the change, but to thrive in the change. But if you bury your head in the sand, ignore the circumstances you're in, change will happen to you rather than happen for you, rather than happening with you. So I want you to look at this as a growth opportunity, whatever the change may be. If you're in government, you need to look at it as a growth opportunity. I mean, I literally just looked at an article. I was reading an article about a person who got laid off from their corporate job in the tech sector. They literally got surprisingly laid off. And in the midst of their layoff, they literally started a new business, a new startup company, and they're loving life because they were unleashed from that job into their purpose. And that might be you. So I want you to think long and hard about the transitions of power that you have in your organization, the transitions of leadership in your organization, and how are you preparing your teams? If they're not prepared, then you should probably live this message. And if you know people who are going through transitions and may not know what to do, please share this video with them. Please be comfortable with liking, commenting, and sharing on this video, because I want to make sure that everybody has a peaceful transition of power and how they can guide their teams, every leader, how they can guide their teams through a transition of leadership. My name is Anton Gunn. I want to thank you for watching Leadership Live, and everybody have a fantastic day.